You never forget the first time a mountain tries to eat you, and the purple worm is less beast than burrowing natural disaster. A chitin-armored juggernaut of instinct, muscle, and endless appetite. It moves through the earth the way fish cut through water. It swallows stone, ore, and anything unfortunate enough to be standing in the wrong tunnel. It's massive, territorial, and nearly unkillable without ample preparation and a small battalion. Even post-mortem, it demands respect. Its hide can shear blades, its bile can melt bone, and its sheer size turns butchery into an industrial operation. And yet, buried beneath the plates, acid sacs, and cloying mucus lies meat that, when properly cleaned and handled, offers a depth of flavor matched only by the depths that it calls home. So, let's get into how to eat it. But first, quick aside. The titular purple of the purple worm is not a trait of its flesh, but of a thick mucus coating continuously secreted by glands along the skin. This mucus serves a vital respiratory function, enabling the worm to extract oxygen through its skin via diffusion. In the dry, abrasive tunnels of the Underdark, the mucus provides both moisture retention and a breathable medium, replacing the need for lungs. The coating is typically several millimeters thick, often laced with grit, metal shavings, and ambient minerals from the worm's environment. For centuries, naturalists believed that the so-called mottled worm, a similarly proportioned aquatic beast found in deep subterranean lakes and big oceans, was a separate species. Only recent anatomical dissections confirm that it is in fact a purple worm that has adapted to aquatic conditions. In water, the mucus layer is naturally shed as the worm just uses the surrounding water directly as its respiratory medium. The absence of mucus in these specimens gives their flesh a pale, mottled appearance, revealing the worm's true coloration beneath. All this is to say, don't be surprised when you get served purple worm meat and don't see the vibrant violet coloring on the plate. It's also to say, we have to figure out how to deal with that mucus somehow. Before a blade even sees flesh, you must contend with two formidable barriers: the aforementioned coating of thick mucus, and the worm's dense chitin plating. Together, they form an exterior defense that resists not only the party's weapons, but also most conventional butchery techniques. The mucus should be addressed first. On freshly slain specimens, it'll be thick and actively excreted for several hours post-mortem, making footing hazardous and obscuring any incisions. It can be scraped off in sheets using alchemically treated cloths or neutralized with a hot brine solution to congeal and lift the material from the surface. While some alchemists collect the mucus for distillation, it doesn't really have much culinary value, and it tends to foul any meat if not cleared promptly. Since it continues oozing even after death, a common strategy is to delay cleaning the carcass until the next night, but then you leave your kill at risk of scavengers, so weigh your options accordingly. The chitin is composed of overlapping plates up to 6 inches thick in older specimens, each interlocked by fibrous connective tissue and often sealed with compacted mineral grit. These plates are curved, slippery when wet, and frequently reinforced with trace metals from the worm's diet, meaning some segments may be literally as tough as steel. Getting through requires preparation. Heat-treated chisels are commonly employed by seasoned purple worm butchering teams, and in some Underdark settlements, it's customary to soften the plates with a poultice made from concentrated ooze extract, which can weaken the plates without damaging the underlying muscle. Or, just hand the barbarian a bludgeon and tell him to go wild. This does damage the meat closest to the surface, but there's more than enough meat to go around. Only once the chitin is breached and the mucus is scraped away can a butcher begin the real work, extracting the meat before the acids and gases within the carcass turn the entire operation into a hazard of its own. The purple worm's interior is a biological labyrinth of gargantuan scale. Even slain, a purple worm remains a threat to the careless or underprepared. Its immense size, volatile anatomy, and corrosive biology makes field butchery a high-risk endeavor. The following are the most common and catastrophic dangers faced by harvest teams. First, stomach acid exposure. The purple worm possesses a distributed digestive system with multiple stomach chambers staggered throughout its length. Each chamber produces a corrosive acid capable of dissolving stone, bone, and flesh within minutes. If even one of these chambers is punctured during butchery, the acid can spill into surrounding tissues or flood internal cavities. Tools will melt, gloves will dissolve, and exposed skin may be lost entirely without immediate neutralization. Experienced butchering teams do keep alkaline powders on hand, but prevention remains the best strategy. Stomach chambers should be located and marked off before any major internal incisions are made. Next, flesh collapse. The worm's muscle structure, while deceptively uniform, is highly pressurized. The concentric muscle bands contain dense internal tension even post-mortem. Improper cutting, especially deep incisions made too early or at weak points between the segmented rings, can result in a sudden collapse of adjacent muscle mass. This phenomenon, known colloquially as flesh collapse, can crush limbs or suffocate butchers who are working from within. Some teams prefer an inside-out method, entering through the crop and excavating the prime meat from the interior when they butcher the worm. But this technique is extremely risky without proper bracing, magical supports, or muscle locking agents. Collapses are often silent until the moment they aren't, at which point the surrounding tunnel may quake and the worm may partially recoil in death spasms, even down the length of the worm from where the incision was made, which catches team members unaware and kills quickly. And finally, let's discuss post-mortem spasms. Despite being pronounced dead, some purple worms have been known to twitch, constrict, or reflexively contract hours after death. This is different than flesh collapse, and particularly is common in older specimens whose distributed nerves remain active longer due to their regenerative tissue factors. Sections of the tail may continue to flex when touched, and in rare cases, the mouth is even clenched shut mid-harvest. Even experienced monster handlers treat the dead purple worm with the same caution that they would give a living one. One wrong cut can turn a lucrative carcass into a tomb. Assuming you make your way into and back out of the worm in one piece, you should have gotten a massive amount of meat to have some fun in the kitchen with. The bulk of the culinary value lies in the worm's thick, coiling muscle bands, which vary in texture and flavor depending on the location. Near the mouth, muscle tissue becomes striated with cartilage and is often saturated with trace amounts of digestive fluid. While less palatable, some chefs value the gelatinous properties of this region for broth bases, and it can easily be pulverized into a mash. Many drow reserve this portion of the meat to be combined with chopped fungus and made into a meal for feeding their workers. It isn't tasty, but it is packed with nutrients. The central third of the worm yields the most desirable cuts. These muscles are thick, dense, and well insulated from the stomach acids, producing meat that's lean yet marbled with mineral-rich fat deposits. When cured properly, this meat develops an umami-forward profile with faint hits of iron and petrichor, reminiscent of aged cave scorpion or fermented cave fish. Muscle near the tail is tougher and more fibrous, owing to its role in the locomotion and propulsion of the worm. Though it's difficult to tenderize, it's excellent when slow braised or ground into sausages. It has a darker hue and a deeper flavor, with slightly more grit embedded in the fibers. And it's a favorite of many Dwergar who compare the terroir of various worm meats. Unlike most terrestrial megafauna, the purple worm does not possess a centralized organ cluster. Instead, its internal systems are distributed along the length of the body in modular segments, with multiple hearts, redundant stomach nodes, and a repeating muscular and neural structure. This decentralization contributes to the creature's resilience. It can suffer massive trauma to one region and continue functioning almost unaffected. This is also a boon to us culinary-minded folk, as a single kill can yield plenty of amazing goodies. For example, the hearts. There are typically 4 to 6 hearts in a mature purple worm, and each is the size of a halfling, deeply embedded within the innermost muscle layers and encased in cartilage domes. The hearts pump a thick, slow-circulating purple-black blood, which can be used for its own slew of alchemical properties. While most surface dwellers regard the hearts of purple worm as suitable only for alchemical rendering and potion making, in Drow high cuisine they're considered a rare and potent delicacy. The hearts, once extracted and purged of their blood, are typically cured in salt and chilled. These cured hearts are prized for their dense, velvety texture and are believed to enhance vitality and endurance, especially in times of arcane exhaustion. The heart is rarely offered to outsiders, but well-traveled gourmands and mercenary chefs have brought the dish to surface legends, where it's whispered of in elite culinary circles. Adventurers who are able to return with an intact purple worm heart can expect a bidding war from Underdark emissaries and aristocratic collectors of the grotesque. But how does it taste? Well, purple worm meat is a complex ingredient, offering rich and varied flavors that shift dramatically depending on the worm's habitat, age, and most importantly, where it tunnels through. A mountain-dwelling worm, for instance, which burrows through granite and slate and subsists on iron-rich soil and ore veins, will yield meat with a dark, briny taste, muscular, dense, and metallic in finish. These are best slow-roasted or salt-cured to balance the intensity. An Underdark worm, by contrast, carries the earthy complexity of its fungal and mineral-heavy environment. Its meat tends to be fattier, softer, and infused with subtle notes of aged mycelium, perfect for pickling or grilling with acidic accents. The aquatic variant, often referred to as the mottled worm, is especially prized. Washed clean of its mucus coating by its watery habitat, it yields pale gray flesh with a remarkably clean and briny flavor. Its diet of crustaceans, deep kelp, and calcified sediments gives it a sweetness uncommon in its kind, somewhere between marsh eel and ghost crab. The flesh is tender, slightly oily, and needs very minimal seasoning. Steamed or poached preparations best preserve its delicate flavor profile. It must be noted, however, that this kind of flavor stratification is something of a generalization. Purple worms are not sedentary creatures. They're known to traverse vast underground distances, cutting through earth that span multiple biomes in just weeks. A single specimen might begin its foraging in an iron-rich mountain range, pass through fungal Underdark caverns, and emerge in an ancient flooded tunnel system where it subsists on aquatic prey and sediment. The result is a complex and blended flavor profile, with distinct notes shifting along the length of the carcass. One section might taste strongly of rust and slate, while another's marbled with the fatty sweetness of fungal-fed tissues. In such cases, experienced butchers and chefs taste and sort cuts accordingly, treating the worm not as a single ingredient, but as a culinary cross-section of the continent. While no two purple worms taste exactly alike, these general patterns of flavor profile analysis do remain useful guides when preparing or selecting meat for particular dishes. While the purple worm is highly appreciated for its culinary potential, it has long been a staple resource in alchemical, industrial, and cultural practices across subterranean civilizations. Nearly every part of the creature serves a secondary use beyond the plate, making it one of the most resource-efficient monstrosities available. Assuming you survive the harvest, of course. First, the chitin plates. The worm's exterior armor is prized for its combination of flexibility and extreme durability. Once cleaned and dried, purple worm chitin can be shaped into lightweight, heavy-duty plating suitable for use in armor or construction. And in some alchemy guilds, powdered worm chitin is used as a binding agent in a variety of lacquers to improve the durability of equipment. Next, the stomach acid. While it's highly volatile and dangerous in its raw form, purple worm stomach acid is still harvested by skilled alchemists and processed into powerful solvents and etching agents. A diluted version, when properly stabilized of course, is used in industrial mining operations to bore through stone or extract ore without the need for explosives. It also features prominently in poison making and trap designs. Improper handling has resulted in more than a few unfortunate incidents during transport though, so most responsible sellers keep it magically contained until sale, for everyone's sake. Next, worm blood. The thick, mineral-rich blood of the purple worm is prized as an alchemical reagent for creating healing potions. The blood directly from the heart is the most prioritized for this, and each worm heart has enough blood for 24 healing potions, assuming proper draining. The blood also has mild hallucinogenic effects when ingested or inhaled in mist form, believed to induce subterranean visions or earth memories in those attuned to geomancy. To others, it just makes them feel like they're going mad, so keep that in mind. Next, worm teeth. The purple worm's maw is lined with concentric rings of teeth, designed not for chewing, but for digging through, and then funneling stone and biomatter into its gullet. These teeth are remarkably durable, retaining their edge even after years of grinding through solid rock. Once extracted and cleaned, they make excellent materials for carving tools, piercing weapons, and reinforced arrowheads. Certain Dwergar blacksmiths embed them into maces or flails for a vicious serrated effect as well. The largest of these teeth, sometimes referred to as root fangs, can grow over a foot in length, and these ones are often repurposed into ornate dagger blades or ritual knives. In some cultures, worm teeth are also worn as tokens of survival or dominance, either mounted into jewelry or set into weapon pommels. So beware the drow ranger with a necklace full of worm teeth. Each one of those is proof of another worm raid that they made it back from. And finally, the worm stinger. Purple worms possess a retractable tail stinger capable of delivering a potent paralytic venom. This barbed, bone-like appendage can reach several feet in length and is often deeply embedded in the tail's armored end, requiring heavy tools or magical aid for safe extraction. The stinger itself is favored by weapon makers and alchemists alike. Its naturally tapered shape and resilient structure make it ideal for transforming into needlepoint spears, arrowheads, or lancettes. More importantly, the venom gland housed at the stinger's base is a rare and dangerous prize. This venom causes progressive muscular fatigue, and then failure, and then finally neurological disruption altogether. It's used in the creation of poisons, anesthetics, and in certain circles, it's used for interrogation compounds. Handling the gland is not recommended without gloves, magical containment, or a hearty disdain for personal safety. Among scavengers, salvagers, and adventuring crews, crop trawling is quite a lucrative gig, should you be lucky enough to fell a purple worm or happen upon another group's hard work. The purple worm's crop, a thick-walled, muscular grinding chamber situated just behind the throat, is not only a key organ in the creature's digestive process, but it's also an inadvertent treasure vault. As the worm burrows through the earth and swallows vast quantities of stone, soil, and prey, hard or indigestible materials often become trapped in the crop before being fully broken down or passed into more corrosive stomach chambers. Trawling through a worm's crop may yield everything from raw ore and uncut gemstones to metal weapons, armor fragments, coins, and the occasional enchanted item hardy enough to withstand the journey. Many bards sing stories of adventurers who pulled intact rings of protection, platinum belt buckles, or even enchanted swords from within the grit of a worm's crop, often still bearing the bloodstains of their last owners. When a worm happens to pass through a buried ruin, forgotten battlefield, or gods forbid, an entire village, its crop becomes a morbid catalog of whatever it ingested in its path. One man's lost livelihood can quickly become a scavenger's lucky day. For some scavenger clans in the Underdark, it's a skill set passed down through the generations, with many villages having a designated crop trawling team to make the most of any purple worm carcasses they come across. The Dwergar put it best: the worm eats the world, and we eat what's left. Best of luck on your next worm butchering trip. And if you do make it back in one piece, let's discuss a few recipes you can make with your hard-earned worm meat. First, grilled worm skewers. This is a classic dish in any Underdark settlement right after a worm falls. Simply take your worm meat, make sure it's cleaned of all the mucus and chitin shards, and then slice it into 1 to 2 inch cubes. Marinate that meat in a mixture of your choice. Different villages have different worm marinades, but one that I quite enjoyed was made of fermented fungal sap, ground rust root, and black vinegar. After the meat has had some time to marinate, at least an hour and up to overnight, slide it on some skewers and roast it over open flame until it's nicely charred and cooked through. Then make sure to brush a bit more of that marinade on as it cooks and finishes up. Finally, serve it with a big glass of ale to celebrate a difficult adventure. Next, let's move on to wormtail stew, another hearty Underdark favorite. This dish has as many variations as the Underdark has villages, but they all start with slicing up some wormtail meat and tenderizing it well. Let your aggression out, the tail meat is tough. Then add the whole kitchen sink, root vegetables, fungi, sausage, whatever you have on hand, it can't hurt. Add some worm stock and let it cook low and slow, seasoned to your own taste. A great set it and forget it meal, as the wormtail needs at least 6 hours on low heat to break down properly and become tender. Serve it with some blue cap mushroom bread and enjoy. And finally, let's discuss a drow delicacy, stone blood carpaccio. This dish is made by taking the worm heart and then purging it of all blood, curing it in salt, and putting it in a cold place for at least a day, if not much longer. Once that process is complete, you'll have a cured heart that lasts for quite a while and as long as it's kept packed in salt. To serve, slice it paper thin, then dress it with some worm fat oil, green speckle algae, and cave salt. It has a rather intense flavor, so a little goes a long way. I hope you enjoyed. And more importantly, I hope you now understand the intricacies of the worm. If you'd like to hear more about my own experiences with the purple worm, make sure to check out my first fireside story I put out. It's a recollection of my time scavenging and cooking worm meat, and all the danger that came along with it. And if you'd like to let your own party explore the risks, rewards, and amazing culinary possibilities of purple worm, I wrote a little adventure seed for you to use at your own table. As always, all of my content is completely free. Just check the Ko-fi link in the description to download it. Let me know what you think and if I should make more adventure seeds for upcoming monsters. I hope you enjoy.